You're 24 years old, sitting at a beige desk in an insurance office that smells like printer toner, entering claims data into a system nobody will ever thank you for touching. Your supervisor walks past without a glance. That absence of attention is the exact moment everything shifts. Your phone lights up with an email that is not spam and not a promotion. It is a notice from a small holding entity you quietly registered 9 months earlier, almost as a private experiment. That entity just closed on a tiny freelance scheduling tool nobody else wanted. You paid $450 for it, and the numbers in the confirmation message do not make sense until you read them twice. It is already worth roughly 12 times what you spent. Your hands go cold, not because of the dollar figure, but because of what it proves. Something you built in secret is alive and growing on its own. You close your laptop at work as if nothing happened. A coworker asks if you are okay, and you say you are fine. You are not fine. You are standing at the edge of something enormous, and every person around you has no idea it exists. That night, you sit alone in your apartment with the blinds shut, and you open a folder that has nothing to do with your day job. Inside is 9 months of quiet architecture. A limited liability company filed in a state you have never visited. A separate holding entity layered above it. 2 bank accounts under names that sound almost, but not quite like your own. A plan that began as a curiosity and slowly turned into a weapon. You remember exactly how it started. $450, a domain fee, and a registered agent charge. You bought a dying recipe blog from a burned-out hobbyist who posted about giving up on a forum nobody reads anymore. You spent 1 weekend fixing the broken email sign-up and cleaning up years of outdated links. You told no one. You let it run quietly for 3 months, and it generated $6,000 in profit before you sold it for $19,000 to a buyer who never learned your real name. That was the first rule, and you wrote it down the same week. Stay unseen. The instant people know what you are building, they start asking why, and why is a door that lets them walk straight into your life. You take the $19,000, and you do not spend a single dollar of it on yourself. You split it in half. One half goes into a second purchase. A simple online tool that helps tutors manage bookings for a modest but steady fee. The other half goes into legal structure because you already understand something most people your age never consider. The entity protects you more than the asset ever will. You form a holding company, and from that point forward, everything you acquire belongs to it and not to you personally. You become a shadow standing behind another shadow. 3 months later, the tutoring tool doubles its monthly revenue after you rebuild its back end during quiet hours between 11 at night and 2 in the morning while still showing up at your desk by 8:30 the next day, nodding through meetings about quarterly numbers that feel like they belong to somebody else entirely. You are living 2 separate lives at once. In one, you are an underpaid data entry employee. In the other, you are quietly assembling a collection of small digital businesses. By month 7, the holding company owns 3 modest assets worth a combined total near $180,000, and you have told absolutely no one. Not your parents, not the person you are dating. Especially not them, because the one time you almost mentioned it something in your chest told you to stop talking mid-sentence, and you listened to that instinct without question. The private rules keep multiplying just as fast as the money does. Never hold more than 2 assets in the same industry, so a single failure cannot wipe you out. Never agree to meet a seller face-to-face unless there is no other option, because faces get remembered and remembered faces get discussed. Never celebrate, not even quietly, not even alone in a mirror, because pride is the first crack that lets a secret start leaking. You begin studying contract law late at night instead of sleeping. You learn what an indemnification clause actually shields you from. You learn how a poorly structured earnout can quietly ruin the person selling to you if the terms lean against them, and you make certain yours never do. You learn the difference between buying assets and buying shares, and which structure keeps your name further from public record. Then the first real threat arrives. It is the tutoring scheduling tool, the very one from the opening moment, the one that multiplied in value almost overnight. The seller is a tired man in his 50s, whose name you make a point of forgetting on purpose, and weeks after the deal closes, he decides he wants more money. He claims the terms were misrepresented. He starts calling people. Not a lawyer yet, just calls to acquaintances and a small local business newsletter. Your name is attached to nothing public, but your holding company's registered agent is listed somewhere, and that is a loose thread, and loose threads have a way of unraveling entire sweaters. Your stomach drops the first time you truly consider that this could all collapse. Not the business, you. The identity you have spent nearly a year folding carefully into darkness. You do something you swore you never would. You agree to meet him once in an empty parking structure that smells like motor oil at 7 in the morning before your shift begins. You bring printed timestamps, message logs, and every document proving the deal was clean. On the outside, you are perfectly calm. On the inside, your heartbeat feels like a drum solo with no rhythm. He listens. He goes quiet. He accepts a small settlement of $6,000 just to walk away and never mention it again. You drive to work that morning shaking, not from fear, but from something closer to hunger. You just protected something you built out of nothing, using only paper and nerve. It is the first moment you truly understand that money was never the dangerous part. Exposure is. By month 10, the holding company crosses $1 million on paper, with roughly $310,000 in actual liquid value if everything were sold today. You still live in the same small apartment. You still drive the same car with a check engine light you have ignored for over a year. Because Rule 3, written in permanent marker on the inside of your closet door where no one else will ever look, says that your lifestyle must never become a receipt for your success. You quietly resign from your day job around month 11. Not with any dramatic announcement, just a calm 2-week notice and a simple story about wanting to freelance. No one questions it. Your supervisor wishes you well. You almost laugh at how effortless the disguise turns out to be. Free from the office, you move faster. You acquire a small subscription-based tool that automates invoicing for independent contractors, paying $90,000 for it, most of it pulled from the profits of your earlier acquisitions. You negotiate the entire deal through encrypted messages with a broker who has never seen your face. Within 4 months, you double its recurring monthly revenue simply by fixing the clunky onboarding process that most owners were too lazy to touch. This is when something shifts inside you psychologically. In the beginning, you built all of this out of quiet anger. The anger of feeling invisible and watching other people get praised for efforts smaller than yours. Now you build because stopping feels unbearable. You wake at 5 in the morning, not because you have to, but because your mind refuses to let you rest any longer. You start speaking less to the people who love you. Your partner asks why you seem distant, and you say work has been stressful. It is not a lie. It is a smaller truth hiding a much larger one. You begin noticing that the cost of secrecy compounds exactly like your revenue does. Every dinner where you quietly withhold the truth. Every family gathering where someone asks if you are managing okay financially and you shrug like you are barely getting by while your holding company closes a deal worth more than your parents paid for their home. The mask grows heavier every month, yet you keep wearing it because the mask has become the only thing protecting the empire underneath. By month 14, you sit at just under $1.4 million in enterprise value across 5 small holdings. You hire your first assistant. Someone working remotely from another country who has no idea what you actually own. She believes she is supporting a small marketing consultancy. You tell yourself this protects her too. Some quiet part of you almost believes that. The pace sharpens from here. A larger, better-funded holding group notices one of your assets performing unusually well within a narrow niche market. They send an unsolicited and aggressive buyout offer. $1.2 million for the scheduling tool alone, the very same one that once nearly exposed you to an angry seller over a year earlier. You sit with the offer for 5 days. Accepting means a massive liquidity event that would permanently reshape your finances. But accepting also means due diligence, paperwork, and lawyers digging directly into your ownership structure, exactly the kind of visibility you have spent years avoiding. Instead of selling, you counter. You offer them a limited licensing arrangement, allowing them to use your back-end technology under their own branding for $300,000 up front, plus ongoing royalties. It keeps you hidden. It keeps you in control. They agree, quietly impressed, never realizing the person negotiating through an intermediary is 27 years old and has never once appeared on a company website. Something else shifts internally around this time, something you rarely admit, even to yourself. A quiet, cold contempt begins forming toward people who are still trading their entire lifetime for someone else's paycheck. You catch yourself judging friends for complaining about difficult managers, and you hate that reaction because barely 2 years earlier you were exactly one of them. Power does not just hand you leverage. It quietly rewrites what feels normal to you. By month 18, the holding company's combined valuation crosses $7 million. You quietly purchase your first genuinely personal asset, a modest 3-bedroom home paid for in a way that does not trace cleanly back to any single acquisition. You still drive the same aging car. You still rotate the same handful of plain shirts. The paranoia never fades as the number grows. If anything, it sharpens because now there is far more at stake to lose. Around month 22, an independent newsletter writer who covers obscure holding companies as a personal hobby begins publicly asking questions about the entity that licensed technology to the larger competitor. Your name is not mentioned yet, but your registered agent's name surfaces, and someone in the replies begins connecting dots that were never supposed to connect. Your pulse does not simply spike, it stays elevated for days. You barely sleep. You seriously consider dissolving the entire structure and rebuilding it under cleaner paperwork somewhere else. You consult a lawyer, paying through a favor owed from an earlier deal, and he tells you the exposure is small but not zero. Small but not zero becomes the sentence that follows you into the shower every morning for a week. You restructure anyway. You spend $60,000 in legal fees, building a cleaner layer between yourself and every asset you own. An umbrella entity registered somewhere the writer will never think to search, managed by an agent who has never met you and never will. The story about the mystery network runs anyway. It receives a few thousand views. No one in your actual life ever sees it. You exhale properly for the first time in 11 days. By month 28, you sit at roughly $390 million in total enterprise value across 16 businesses, ranging from scheduling software to niche content sites to a small regional credit union stake you acquired almost as an experiment in influence rather than income. You have met perhaps 5 of your business partners in person, ever. Your face appears on 0 public company filings that a casual search could uncover. Your family still believes you freelance quietly from home. In the silence of these late hours, you start to understand something uncomfortable. The $450 was never really the beginning. The true beginning was the moment you decided that staying unseen mattered more than being recognized. That being underestimated could become a sharper weapon than any resume ever printed. That the world often rewards the people it never sees approaching. By month 31, an acquisition offer arrives for the entire structure, not a single asset this time, but the whole architecture underneath it. $480 million, split across cash and structured earnouts, from a private equity group that has spent nearly 4 months quietly trying to determine exactly who controls everything they are attempting to buy. Your lawyer handles every conversation. Your name touches none of it. You sit in the very same apartment you almost left 2 years earlier, staring at a number that once felt like pure fiction, and you feel nothing resembling triumph. What you feel is closer to grief, for every dinner spent pretending to be smaller than you truly were, for every relationship that quietly starved on secrecy while the empire fed endlessly on that same silence. You sign. Somewhere in the world, money moves that will never trace back to your name in any headline, any interview, or any public record anyone might stumble upon by accident. You have built something worth more than most people could earn across 3 lifetimes combined. And to everyone who has ever known you, you remain simply the quiet one who does something vague with computers. You sit there afterward in the dark with your phone in hand, staring at a balance that still does not feel entirely real. And one question presses down harder than all $480 million combined. If you can build an empire the world never once saw coming, is the invisibility itself the true fortune? Or is it simply the loneliest price anyone ever pays for power?